Good morning. G'day, Grievers already. The beautiful people are rolling in. How is everyone? It's a pretty cold day here in Tassie. Beautiful day, but brr. I went for a lovely beach walk this morning, though, and I've got mountains of things to do, but I can't stop thinking about the mushroom story. And we covered it last night, very late last night, just sort of the background of it. And there's something from last night's live that is really bugging me. So I want to talk about that today. Also, the story is now global, so I thought we would have a look at the Washington Post and their report on the story. There's also a podcast already, The Australian, which is an Australian newspaper, have a podcast. And there's also something we didn't look into much last night, but now that it's sort of been reported everywhere as well, there's also the story of the ex-husband of the woman who made the meal on Friday, the 29th of July, that left 3 people dead and a 4th person fighting for their life in hospital. I've actually pinned something too, which might look a bit weird for you guys, but it's pretty important for something that we are going to be talking about today, and that's one of the things that's really bugging me. So firstly, I just want to say hello to all the beautiful people. Murder by Mushroom. Hi, Francesca. Yep, please hit the thumbs up. That would be awesome if you could do that. Great to see you too, Cement Shoes, who's miserable that he missed batshit last night. It was a ripper episode. He claims it was, in fact, the funniest one ever. So if you haven't seen last night's batshit episode, it was an absolute doozy for sure. Also want to say a beautiful hello to Scout Inquirer. Gratuitous sunny shot. She's also finding the day a bit cold, curled up like a little pom-pom. Emily Flotilla checking in. Hello, beautiful. Who else? Hey, Trisha, how are you? Listening in. Have I said hi? Oh, Blank Slate, a very tired hello. Well, hello to you too. Mushroom, I know. Every story has an emoji. It's a very crazy case, and she is an odd woman, and that's why I've pinned the list of victims. So they are Don and Gail Patterson, Erin's former parents-in-law, the parents of her ex-husband, Simon, who we'll be talking about a bit later, and Heather Wilkinson. And Heather's husband, Ian, who's the pastor of the local Baptist church, is still fighting for his life in hospital. Now, the dinner party, or the lunch, sorry, happened on the 29th, Friday the 29th of July. Heather and Gail died on the 4th of August and Don on the 5th, I believe. Or possibly, it might have even been the 3rd, sorry. Look, dates are not great. I should have done a little timeline, but we'll be looking at an article shortly anyway that will go through all of that. But it's pretty critical information in terms of the interview that Erin Patterson gave to the media and what last night we initially thought may have been a mistake. And it just bugged me. After I ended the live, I was just going, nah, this is weird. And it's a factual thing. It's an interview, so we're not speculating outside what we know. But the interview, she makes a massive error, and I can't reconcile it. So we're going to be talking about that. Oh, no, you can keep your little blue wrench. It makes you look sexy, Emily. Yes, we'll be looking at the ex-husband's Facebook post about an illness that he got struck down with last year, and it just is is it a coincidence? You tell me. Soulmate, hello. I know, and that's one of the first things that came out was, look, I mean, we don't know if she killed them, right? She's innocent until proven guilty. She's not even charged yet, but she is, of course, a suspect. She's the last people to see them alive, and she fed them the dish with the mushrooms in it that ultimately killed 3 people, and one is now in a very critical condition. And also, interestingly, she and her children didn't eat the mushroom meals, so... But even without all of that, she'd still be a suspect being the last person to see them alive. There's usually a lot of suspects at the start of an investigation, and then gradually they get whittled away with alibis and so on. But she is, of course, a suspect being the person who fed the fatal meal. She's a doppelganger of a woman I unfortunately used to work with who always talked about killing people. It's gripped Australia, this story, and I love to Sunny Bum from Pepsi and Myla, and of course Auntie Scout. Yeah, so, well, that's another thing too, soulmate. We're going to be talking this morning about the dehydrator, and is it weird that a dehydrator suddenly ends up in the rubbish at a tip? Like a dehydrator was thrown out and taken away in the rubbish. There's so many elements of this story, which is why it's not only gripped Australia, but now all over the world. Well, not all over the world, but it has definitely gripped America. SRB, hello. So, yeah, the fact that she didn't eat it and also didn't taste it. Now, look, everyone's entitled to cook and prepare food the way they want to, but if I have a lunch or a dinner party, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm tasting it before I serve it to anyone. There's no way I would just put food on the table and hope that it was perfectly seasoned and delicious. It's all sounding very sus, Emily, very, and everyone is fascinated by it. You got the worst vibes from her and the size of her, but she didn't eat any of the food. Oh, sweet. Come on now, no fat shaming. I mean, if she ends up being charged and convicted, well, let's go ballistic on her, you know, but you cheeky bugger. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, because some of you may not be fully up to speed on the story, is I'm going to share the Washington Post article, because now it's hidden media in the US and, I mean, possibly Canada and the UK, but this is just the first article I grabbed. She invited 4 people over for lunch. A week later, 3 were dead. The thing is, this is like one of those true crime fiction novels that we've all read. Like, it's just got everything. It's got absolutely everything. Small Australian country town. Apparently, like, we've got a fantastic member in our community, Aussie Tad, who lives fairly close to where this is all happening. So she's been giving me a lot of really good background information, and it involves 2 small country towns. And apparently those 2 towns aren't fans of each other. Like, there's all of that sort of parochial Australian thing going on. Then you've got the fact that the man who's fighting for his life, Ian Wilkinson, was the pastor of the local Baptist church. So they're all Baptists, and 3 of them taught at the local school, and then Ian was the pastor. So the 3 who died all worked at the local school, very active in their communities. Then you've got the ex-husband who, according to the cops, said that the breakup between Erin and Simon was amicable, but this post on Facebook where he talks about this illness last year that nearly killed him, and family members were told to go in and say goodbye to him. You've got that going on. Then you've got where the fuck did the mushrooms come from? Were they purchased? And initially it's understood she said they were, but it's then gone completely silent. However, that came from a mainstream media source that I'm not a huge fan of, so take that with a grain of salt. But the fact that there's now this dehydrator that was found at the tip, or landfill, as you guys, I hadn't quite even got to, we have landfill too, but we have like the tip where the rubbish is taken and then that's then sorted, and some of it's retrieved and sold at tip shops and the rest of it goes into landfill. This little dehydrator just happens to be there. Also, there's confusion about the dehydrator because initially it was said it was seized from her home, but now there's talk about this dehydrator found at the tip. So there's the dehydrator mystery. There's the why didn't she taste it before serving it? Why didn't she eat it? Why were the kids given different meals? Like, it just, there's her really awkward interview. And I'm being kind at the moment and saying, you know, this is a pretty horrific story. Like, if she didn't do it, then her behavior doesn't surprise me. But then if she did do it, her behavior is kind of curious. Like, it's all just happening. Oh, the plot is very thick, Emily. Well, yeah, I mean, I always eat everything I serve my guests. So you're fat, so you're allowed. You're nuking a potato, you'll be in and out. Oh, God, let's hope there isn't a potato mystery. Australian country towns, beware. Well, let's be honest, any country town, anywhere, beware. Although I live in one, but it's coastal as well. I think that makes it slightly different. That's what we chatted about last night too, soulmate. There's also that aspect of it, like, is this the perfect crime? Or maybe not, who knows? But, yeah, it might be giving people ideas. I'd be very mindful if you ever go to someone's house and they're like, first up, we're having a mushroom risotto from foraged mushrooms. Be like, oh, I don't like mushrooms. I'll wait for the next course. Thank you very much. And foraging's become a huge thing in the foodie culture, but Erin Patterson doesn't really look like your foraging type. So, I mean, not that I can say what a foraging type looks like, but there's a foraging group down here. I'm actually on a foraging Facebook group all about mushrooms, and people post all of these mushrooms and everyone's on there going, oh, no, don't eat them. No. The majority is like, no, don't touch, no touchy. But the people in that community, and also the guy that I know down here is a chef and he does little foraging tours. She doesn't look like the people who forage, in my opinion. Those deadly mushrooms pop up everywhere. Well, we don't know about the life insurance, but there's also her parents-in-law, who are now deceased, Gail and Don. They had the publishing business for the local newspaper, and they actually handed it over to her a few years ago. So there's a lot of talk about that, like as far as motives, and there's so much talk. Everyone's gripped. Hello, Green Eyes. I've missed you. How have you been? Yeah, the eye drop murders. You've never eaten mushrooms again. Mushrooms can be fun, but on this occasion, sadly, quite the opposite. So let's have a look at the Washington Post article, fresh off the press, August the 9th at 4:03 a.m. Dun, 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 dun. The mushroom in the blue rubber-gloved hand. So this is apparently a mycologist at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne inspecting a death cap mushroom. These are the mushrooms that were alleged to be the poisoning is consistent with the death cap mushrooms. They're also on my thumbnail, hidden behind mushrooms, mystery and murder. Australia is gripped by the mysterious deaths of 3 people in a suspected poisoning case that reads like a fictional thriller. Well, there you go. I just said something similar. 2 couples were invited to lunch at a palatial country home. It is a nice home in the state of Victoria one Saturday in late July. They included a local pastor and his wife. All 4 were known to locals as pillars of the tight-knit rural community. I'm not subscribing to your Washington Post, sorry. That night, they all became seriously ill with what appeared to be food poisoning. A week later, 3 of the 4 were dead. One man remains in a hospital in critical condition awaiting a liver transplant. The host of the gathering, a woman in her 40s, and her 2 children were unharmed. Then we talk about the death cap mushroom. Amanita phalloides or phalloides, who knows, one of the deadliest known mushrooms to humans. But whether the poisonings are intentional or if the fungus is even the culprit, the murderous mushroom, it's shrouded in mystery. The guest's symptoms were consistent with mushroom poisoning, medical experts and investigators say. Homicide detectives have searched the home of Erin Patterson, the 48-year-old woman who hosted the gathering in Leongatha, about 70 miles southeast of Melbourne. What's that in kilometres? It's over 100. She was taken, because I think it's 2.5 miles to every, sorry, the other way around. 2.5 miles is a kilometre, I think. She was taken in for questioning Saturday and released without charge later that evening. During the search, investigators seized several items they say are of interest to the case. A food dehydrator found at a local landfill is also being tested to see if there's any link. Melbourne's Age newspaper reported citing an anonymous police source close to the investigation. But police have declined to confirm whether the dehydrator is among the items being examined. But when this story first broke, it was that the dehydrator had been seized from her house. So I don't know, a tale of two dehydrators. Women do love a poison. That's very, very true. Hey, bee's knees. God, everyone's got I know it's a crazy time for me to be live too. But you'll be back in 5, garage doorman here to service it. Great to see you, bee's knees. Yes, poisoning is famously a woman's weapon. They're apparently looking at CCTV at the tip. They're looking at everything. It's just full on. It's a complex investigation, Detective Inspector Dean Thomas, head of the Victorian Police Homicide Squad, said at a news conference. At this point in time, the deaths are unexplained. Thomas said the host is a suspect because she cooked those meals for the people, but he added, we have to keep an open mind in relation to this, and it could be very innocent. All right, so we have to keep an open mind, everybody, but we do here on this channel. Facts matter. Victims matter. But we already have enough facts that we can scrutinise a little bit. There's Dean Thomas. That's the cop leading the whole thing. The police detective inspector. Then death caps, which taste delicious, according to people who've mistakenly eaten them and survived, look very similar to other non-poisonous mushroom species, and that makes them easily mistakable to people who forage for them in the wild. Just half a cap can cause liver damage. There's a possible antidote available in Europe, but it's awaiting approval in the US and elsewhere. Now, next up, we're going to be looking at Erin's interview, and I'm keen to see how you guys feel about it because Cement Shoes has gone for the full-on guilty as charged, Your Honour. I'm kind of in the devil's avocado. Look, maybe she's just awkward. Media's a bit full-on, but there's something in her interview that's really bugging me. We'll get to that in a minute. But they interviewed her outside her Leongatha home this week, and she said she made the meal for the best people I've ever met and was devastated by their deaths. She said, I just can't fathom what has happened. She declined to say what was on the ill-fated lunch menu or whether she'd eaten it, and police say the children were given a different meal than the adults. Now, one of her kids is actually a young adult, just so you know. It's not like little teeny-weeny kiddies. Well, one of them's not. Police haven't named those who died. Well, they have. So they weren't actually named by police, but according to local media reports, so the host's parents-in-law, now remember this, and this is why I've pinned this stuff, Gail and Don Patterson, both 70, Heather Wilkinson, 66, and Ian Wilkinson, the pastor of the Baptist Church, he remains in the hospital. Patterson went on to say, I can't believe that this has happened. I'm sorry they've lost their lives. I didn't do anything. I love them and I'm devastated that they're gone. Why would I didn't do anything? Well, you did. You fed them a poisonous meal. I mean, whether it was accidental or not, you did do something. You had them over for lunch and now 3 are gone. And that was some of the things I think Cement Shoes in particular last night was like, well, where's all, quite a few people in the chat were like, where's the, oh my God, this is horrific. I can't believe it happened. What could have gone wrong? But yeah, in the middle of it all, I didn't do anything, she says. Now, if the link to the mushrooms is confirmed, it's not the first time death caps have caused serious injury to multiple victims. And this article is great because interesting because it talks about a case from the US in San Francisco Bay Area back in 2016, where 3 people required liver transplants after eating the deadly mushrooms. Several members of one household, including an 18-month-old girl, became seriously ill after eating grilled death caps given to them by someone who'd picked them in the mountains earlier that day. The little baby, an 18-month-old girl, required a liver transplant, and she now has permanent neurological damage, and she ate half a cap. And then there's links to the article, more information about that. Experts say, now this is interesting too for when we look at the ex-husband's Facebook post. Experts say death caps initially result in gastrointestinal problems, vomiting and diarrhea. And then in severe cases, the toxins in the mushrooms can cause kidney and liver damage. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this particular mushroom, the death cap, is responsible for 90% of fatal fungi ingestions worldwide. In a potential twist, because there's already been about 30 in this case, the lunch party host's estranged husband, Simon Patterson, nearly died last year from what he described as serious gut problems. In a Facebook post at the time, he said he collapsed at home and spent 16 days in an induced coma, undergoing several operations, mostly on his small intestine. And he couldn't be immediately reached for comment. But we're going to look at that Facebook post shortly. Then the cops have also said the couple have separated, but their relationship is described as amicable. The Leongatha deaths have rocked the local community, a hub for dairy farms that dot the lush Gippsland countryside. The town has fewer than 6,000 residents. Corumbra, the nearby town where all the victims lived, has a population of about 4,700. So these are little country towns. Wilkinson, the pastor, was well known in the town, and parishioners of the Corumbra Baptist Church gathered on Tuesday to pray for his recovery. We're deeply bereaved by what has happened, local parishioner Joyce Fleming told 9 News. I don't think there'd be any person in this town who wouldn't be feeling grief at the moment, said local resident Lee Spall, whose children had been taught by one of the victims. It's a doozy of a tale, guys. Yeah. I will do a check before we end this live too. Just remind me, I always do a quick update to see if there's any more news. But I'm going to go back to chat for a minute, and then we're going to watch Erin Patterson's interview. Get up to chat. Initially, they said the dehydrator box at her house and the dehydrator at the dump. I like that idea, soulmate. Yeah, they suffer. It's not a good death. I mean, the lunch was on the 29th of July. And I think from memory, the first victims, the 2 girls who were sisters, Gail and Heather, died, I think, on the 4th of August. So they all had like a week. Yeah, so they died on the 4th. The interview with Erin was done on the 5th, and Don Patterson died on the 5th. And when we look at her interview, those dates and names are pretty important. Hi, Bristol. I don't think she had to put much in at all by the sounds of it. That little baby that was in the article, the similar poisoning story from San Francisco in 2016, she ate half a cap and ended up having to have a liver transplant and suffered neurological damage. I think this is one of the reasons why these mushrooms are so bad, is you don't really need to eat much of it at all. I'm in the guilty corner. There's something off about it. And look, it's natural for people to go down that road. I just like to play a bit of devil's avocado because I factor in things like, if she's innocent, she'd be acting weirdly. Because it would just be, I mean, how do you take that on? That like people have gone to your house for lunch and 3 of them have died and one is clinging to life in hospital. So I'm playing a bit of a devil's avocado. I mean, there are other stories like Jared Baden Clay, Chris Watts, where the interview's like, you did it. But then Shane Carey with the Heidi Broussard story, I didn't get that hinky vibe at all, even though many people on YouTube had him hung, drawn and quartered. And, yeah, but this one I don't know. I'm reluctant to go either way, though. It's all very weird. But there is something about the interview that not her behaviour or mannerisms or are there tears or aren't there tears, not that part of it. It's something she says more than once. Very odd interview. Oh, you think Chris Watts was more convincing? Yeah, well, not eating the food does make her look guilty. There's no doubt about that. How odd. If I caused a death through my negligence, I'd be inconsolable, not worrying about my public image. Yeah, but then we also talked about that too, because last night, because if you are, the spouse or connected very closely to the story and you don't give an interview, everyone decides you're guilty because you're not speaking out. And you've got to remember too, the lunch was on the 29th of July. The interview was the 5th of August. Like a fair amount of time had passed. But yeah, you're sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't. And then if you do the interview and you're not inconsolable, you're guilty. If you're laughing and acting weirdly, you're guilty. If you're bawling your eyes out, you're overacting. Like people are fucked, whatever they do, in my view, when it comes to these interviews. And then on top of that, which I chatted about last night too, is when I did breakfast radio, we'd go out and do like Vox Pop interviews with people, just putting a microphone in their face, and they were so uncomfortable about that. They were, and we weren't filming them. Like I've actually seen firsthand over and over and over again how uncomfortable people are just having a microphone put in front of them to speak into, let alone having cameras as well. Oh, the little baby, yeah. Thank God she lived. I'd never trust forage mushrooms. We have morels here, but there are some very similar that are poisonous. Yeah, we've got morels here too. And I don't know about the inheritance, and she was the ex-daughter-in-law. But the motive is Karambara. I did write it down. I wrote Korambara. That was the pronunciation one of the locals said in one of the videos I was watching. I've got Korambara. Did I say Bara? Yeah, Bara. No, so I wrote Korambara down as my phonetic, because I try to get it right. So sorry if I was racing through that article, because I am racing a little bit. I've only got about an hour to go through all of this stuff. I'll get Aussie Tad to send me her phonetics pronunciation. But yeah, I listened to an interview of one of the parishioners, and that was how she pronounced it. There's a way to do it right with strict rules and your lawyer present, but I agree people make their minds up too quickly. After all, I did. Well, but we're all able to change our minds too. But the other thing is, if you're sitting there with a lawyer next to you, people are like, why are they lawyered up? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, no matter what you do. What convinces me is the lack of blaming herself. If I'd accidentally caused someone's death, I would have been saying, I wish I was dead too. Yeah, and look, I mean, the thing is, again, I mean, we don't even know this woman's baseline. Like, she's a sort of nerdy, conservative Baptist type. I don't have anyone like that in my life. I don't know what her baseline is. And this is part of the jumping to conclusions thing. And don't get me wrong, it's human nature to do that. And I've said this on this channel so many times. If we were sitting around a dinner party table, like around my dining room table, drinking wine and just talking about it, sure, let's go for, let's go nuts. But I've just seen on YouTube in particular so many, and not you, cement shoes, but so many other cases where people have just gone, like Shane Carey, guilty as charged, and he wasn't even charged and even a suspect. I don't think maybe he was a suspect at the start because he was the partner, but he would have been. But, and people have been wrong. It's very tricky for us to not impose what we would do on what other people are doing. Like, because I agree with you. Like, that's everyone's first go-to is like, well, I wouldn't have fucking acted like that. But the reality is we're not that woman. And none of us know her and what she's like. You know, friends of hers start coming out saying that interview was really weird, like they did with Chris Watts. Well, awesome. But what if they come out and say that's just what she's like? She's just an awkward weirdo, you know? I don't know. But it's actually what she says. It's not the behavioural thing, because I'm not an expert in that. It's a mistake she makes more than once that I can't get my head around it. And I don't know why it's not being discussed. His interview was bizarre. Yeah, and he was really uncomfortable. Far too much speculation and pulling apart every word in true crime. I'm glad you don't do that. I can't, because I just don't see the point. And the fact that everything starts to come out that we need to always be able to discuss the story, like stories evolve. It's why I haven't been talking about Idaho 4 since the hearing back in, was it in May? Like October is when we'll start talking about that again. All this noise on YouTube about Koberger and everything, irrelevant. See what comes out in the trial. That's the stuff that matters. Wackadoodly doos theorising on YouTube about stuff, it's a waste of time. Oh, you still feel bad for him. Imagine how he felt and what his son went through. Horrific. I mean, and we can imagine what like Kylie Rodney's friends and family went through, and the family that actually had to leave Truckee because they were getting harassed so much. You know, that we can go through so many different stories. And look, irrespective of how scuzzy it sounds the laundries are, even, you know, the whole Molly Golightly gang out and Bullhorn Betty out the front of their house blasting crap through their megaphones or their bullhorns. You know, I think of all the innocent people in the street, the neighbours, the same when they were outside Quinton Simon's parent or grandmother's house, like, or mother's house. Just so many people impacted by the misfortune of being connected to a tragic story. Yeah, totally. It's ridiculous. And all these hundreds of subscribers roll in every day to listen for hours to this shit. And it's like, get a grip, people. And then when they're all proven to be wrong, all this speculating and stuff, you never hear apologies and the damage is already done. Like the Jacks that were identified very early on as, you know, they did it. So many creators that had them basically in the dock ready to send them off to jail for the term of their natural life didn't retract what they'd said or apologise. They were just like, oh, well, we got it wrong. We'll move on to the next thing. They've actually ruined these kids' lives. Every time someone punches their name into Google, if they go to college, for a job interview, they start dating someone, punch their name in Google, and there's a gazillion YouTube channels all saying that they were bloody murderers. It's fucking insane. But we are going to scrutinise the facts, and we're going to kick off with I'm actually using the Australian's interview because I played a slightly different one yesterday. So this time around, we're using the Australian newspaper's footage and interview with Erin Patterson, and hopefully it has the same information that I'm a bit suspicious of. But I'm going to full screen it because I want to hone in. There's a couple of times, I won't be reading chat because I'm on a different window, but there's a couple of times that I want to stop and comment about this error. And the first time we were listening to it yesterday, the first error, it's like, oh, look, she's got a lot going on. Like she had this lunch and she's killed her ex-parents-in-law and the local pastor's wife. And there's all this shit happening and she's got cops crawling around her house and media rocking up and, you know, people can make mistakes. But then she makes the same mistake again and it's really bugging me. And I've pinned a comment in chat which is specific to what we're about to listen to, where I've named the victims, the 3 people who've died, Don and Gail Patterson. They're the former parents-in-law, and Heather Wilkinson, who's Gail Patterson's sister, and the wife of Ian Wilkinson, who's fighting for his life in the hospital. So that's relevant, that little pin post. Okay, so let's give Erin the floor for a sec. I'm curious just to see if you guys pick up on this too.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Sorry, Greaves, I was just saying it was fairly low volume, but it might have just been my headphones, but I've cranked them up, but the volume on the actual video is as loud as it will go.
Tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don. Don is still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather and Gail.
Right there. Did you guys hear that? She says the loss of Don. Now, admittedly, Heather and Gail died the day before, and Don actually died the same day as this interview. So she might have only known about Don's death for an hour or two, right? But she says, initially she says Don, and then she said Don's still in hospital, and then says Gail and Heather and Ian. But Ian is the one that's still alive. Don actually died as well. So she initially says Don, and then she corrects herself and says, no, Don's still in the hospital, and names the other 3. But there's more to it, and I'm going to replay that little bit again. Because I woke up this morning and it was still bugging me, and I'm like, I'll go live, we'll look at it, and I'll see what everyone in this amazing little community we have thinks.
Devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don. Don is still in hospital,
by the loss of Don, and he did actually die that day of this interview. And then she says Don is still in hospital, and then she names the 3 that have died, but one of them, Ian, is the one that's still alive.
Ian and Heather and Gail. They were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me. And I'm so devastated about what's happened.
And then she says Ian and Heather. So she hasn't sort of made that first error and then kind of, and look, don't get me wrong, who knows what sort of stress she's under. If she's guilty of this, then she's under immense stress. And if she's innocent, she's under immense stress. So the initial stumble, I'm kind of like, okay, well, you know, there's a lot going on, and Don actually died on that day. But then she says it again, that the loss of Ian, Heather, and Gail, when it was Don, Heather, and Gail. Baptists always seem odd to me too, Francesca. It is odd, but imagine being in her shoes. Well, I am, and that's why I gave, I think either way, like if it was intentional, she's under extreme stress. If it was an accident, she's under extreme stress. Either way. She hated Gail. Look at you. You're bad. I'm letting you can speculate in chat. But you're cracking me up. Detective Cement Shoes is on the case. Who knows? It's all going to come out, isn't it? Hopefully. Well, especially because Gail got the special mention. But again, if she's innocent and this woman sort of was like a second mum to her, it's horrible, right? But you're all loving cement. Can you keep them entertained because I'm on the other window? But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to replay all of this a bit again where she gets the names wrong. And like I said, I've pinned it in the chat that sadly the people who lost their lives so far, and well, not so far, I mean, I'm hoping Ian Wilkinson recovers, but it sounds like, he's going to need a liver transplant. He could be, facing a very different life to what he had. And also he's lost his wife, Heather, who the peeps in the local town say they were just like inseparable and a gorgeous couple. But the people who've died are Heather Wilkinson, Gail Patterson, and Don Patterson. So let's listen to her again.
Awesome. Ian and Heather. Devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don. Don is still in hospital. The loss of Ian and Heather and Gail. They were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago.
Is there going to be an inquiry into the mother's death 4 years ago?
And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me. And I'm so devastated about what's happened.
And Ian and Heather. So I don't know what... because you write crime fiction, you can't help it. It's you're entertaining as hell, Cement. Just keep going. I just had a thought though, like the police, I don't think, according to that Washington Post article, the police haven't confirmed who's died. The names have been put out there. Let me get back to that article and read out exactly. Police have not named those who died, but according to local media reports, they were the host parents-in-law, Gail and Don Patterson, both 70, and Heather Wilkinson, 66. Ian Wilkinson, 68, remains in the hospital. So it's local media who've put the names out there. But if it's local media, you think they'd have a better idea. And the weird thing too, guys, is this story only broke this week in our media, and it happened on the 29th of July, and Aussie Tad was saying that there hadn't been any conversations going on about how there were people in hospital, 4 people in hospital from alleged food poisoning. Like everyone kind of found out when the story broke in Australia, and it was actually a journalist with The Australian who's got a podcast, and I'm going to drop the link for that too so you guys can all subscribe to that. But the journalist that broke the story is with The Australian, and yeah, they've already got this little podcast up and running. I'm listening and watching this interview, but I'm keeping an open mind, but I do see and hear a few things that makes me have more questions. There's many, many questions. Mentioning her mum's death is odd to me. Is it though? Like, if Gail truly sort of became, her mum because her mum had died and she was the mother-in-law. I mean, I don't know. There's so many things, Francesca. I mean, yeah, it could be. I mean, Cement Shoes and you two should hook up and write a book together. It doesn't help me be objective that she looks exactly like my least favourite co-worker who always talked about how she wanted to kill people. That's not helping her cause at all. Okay. So the names are all wackadoo, but yeah, presumably local media who put the names out there got it right. But just so you know, the police haven't named the victims. Could that be another weird twist? Is the local media misreporting? I mean, there's just so many questions.
Can you tell us?
And the loss to the community and to the families and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
And even that. They've lost their grandmother, but she doesn't mention Don, who's the grandfather. How do we verify who's in the hospital? I'm not going to because I'm not a sleuth, but it's just odd. Like, why isn't she saying my kids have lost their grandparents? My ex-husband's lost his parents. I don't know. Am I barking up the wrong tree here? Let's continue.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
She don't talk about the lunch at all.
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened. I just can't fathom what has happened. That Ian and Heather have lost their lives, and Gail has lost her life, and Donna's still in hospital.
And she just said it again. Like, is she actually telling the truth? Has she got it right and local media's got it wrong? I'm just going to do a quick Google and see if there's any updates since we went live. A New Zealand article went up 27 minutes ago. Because, I mean, every single article is referring to Gail and Don Patterson and Heather Wilkinson all being deceased now, and Heather's husband, Ian Wilkinson, in critical condition and in need of a liver transplant at the Austin Hospital in Melbourne. As more information emerged, it was revealed all suffered symptoms of a gastro-like illness and nausea, stomach pain, and in the case of at least Ian, liver damage. So, I mean, they're waiting on toxicology. Patterson hasn't responded to questions about the origin of the mushrooms and what meals she served her guests. I didn't do anything. I love them. I just can't fathom what's happened. Police find a food dehydrator at rubbish dump and chase CCTV footage to check out the number plates of vehicles that visit the dump. They're also getting CCTV video from both towns. And then they talk about Simon, and we'll talk about that shortly. We'll have a look at his Facebook post. Because if you're thinking this story isn't already full on enough, it's about to get even more full on. Who's with Dame Cement? Was it Murderous Mary? Where are we? Never having to see that woman again was the only good thing about becoming disabled. I never had to see Murderous Mary again. We were all learning a lot about Cement. It's a classic. Yeah, someone, was it Finn? Someone picked up on the shaking the head no. I can't help thinking she did something to her mum too. Keep me away from jury duty. It's going to get juicier, guys. She's actually engaged. Her last boyfriend died. Murderous Mary. Holy, you need to do a live on this or send me all the info and I'll do it. Look at everyone. Everyone's leaning towards Cement, even kind of leaning. Okay. Here we go.
I pray that he pulls through because my children love him.
And you must be.
And this is all her talking about Don being in the hospital and hoping Don pulls through. But every report based on what local media have put out is that Don sadly had passed away and it's Ian fighting for his life. Just mindful, we'll just file this away because I have no way of proving who's still in hospital. I mean, if they start to have funerals and things like that, we might get a bit of intel. Let me just check something else. Hang on a sec. Okay, he's locked his page down. I thought I'd check out the ex-husband Simon's Facebook to see if there's any mention, but there's not. He's locked it down, and the last post is what we're about to look at from last year.
Pretty shaken up by this as well.
I'm devastated. I love them. And I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm so sorry that they have lost their lives.
How are you
I
kids?
just can't believe it. Just can't believe it.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from?
She does a lap of the car. So this one's got a bit more than what we saw last night, and then she heads into the house.
Were they picked from the property area?
I just asked him to leave me alone now, please.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about
Yes,
that?
I say I didn't do anything. I love them.
Okay, so that's when she said I didn't do anything. That's sort of in context with that question, so that makes a bit more sense. Just got her groceries out of the back of the car. Hopefully there's no mushies in there.
And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope with every fibre of my being that Don pulls through. That's what
And then mentions Don again. So yeah, I don't know. Are we putting too much importance on local media releasing the names and not the police? Or is she just making big mistakes repeatedly? I don't know.
But I
Where
have
do
to
mushrooms
say,
come from? Were they picked by you, or where did they come from, Erin? Can you tell us? What meal did you cook them? Did you eat the same meal, Erin?
Okay, so
Tragedy.
yeah. And this, oh, sorry, I just shut it, but this story, hang on, let me just bring this up too. We might as well watch this for a sec. Just to show that, yeah, we weren't, you think it sounds a bit rehearsed? Well, it's not that soon. They died, I guess, the day before, but there'd been two of them did, and one on that day. But I mean, they'd been in hospital. I think when they're missing and they speak in the past tense, that's suspicious. But I don't think it's suspicious when they have actually died and then everyone knows they've died, is it? Yeah, we said the same about the tears, but then there was some devil's avocados in chat yesterday too, saying, well, there's been a lot of stress and crying and stuff, no doubt, going on since the 29th of July when this happened. But yeah, Finn and I both picked up on her rubbing her eyelids, not under her eyes. But then when she does rub under her eyes, she looks at her hands. I think she's constantly looking to see if she's got mascara. She didn't look like she had a heap of makeup on, though. You hear wishful thinking. She may fall into my bad housewives category. I know. Yeah, I'm a messy crier too, green eyes. I never thought I'd say someone was a worse liar than Chris Watts, but give her the tiara and roses, she's won. But I mean, I'm just showing this little video. This is it's the Project, I think, which is a TV show, and it's the Sunday edition. But again, they use the name Ian being the survivor. So let's have a listen to this.
Tragedy has struck Gippsland in regional Victoria after Pastor Ian, his wife Heather, her sister Gail and husband Don all shared a meal at a home in Leongatha on July 29. The next day, they were taken to hospital. On Friday, the two sisters, aged 66 and 70, died. Last night, Don, aged 70, passed away. Pastor Ian
Don passed away, and
Wilkinson,
Ian,
aged 68, remains in a critical condition.
like everyone's reporting that. But yeah, did local media put the... Oh no, Cement's on fire. It cracks us all up. Such a blessing to this already fabulous... What a great community we have, honestly. So, Yeah, the mystery of that. But if it is Don who passed away, what the fuck was she talking about? She kept saying Ian had died and Don was still in hospital and her children had lost their grandmother, but hadn't at that point in her mind lost the grandfather. It's really weird to me, irrespective of all the weird behavior and everything else. And like I said, to me, she doesn't strike me as the foraging type. But why is she talking about Don being in hospital and fighting for his life repeatedly in that interview when everyone's reporting it's Ian who's fighting for his life? Much love to your mum, Trisha, and to you and the family. So the final twist we're going to look at in this episode 2 of Mushrooms, Mystery and Murder, do you like that title, is the ex-husband's Facebook post. If you thought this story was already full of twists and turns and juicy as, let's have a look at Simon's Facebook post that's been reported. Last night I really just wanted to do the basic facts and do more of a deep dive today. That's why we're doing this live now. And this was mentioned in the chat, but now we can actually have a look at it because I've got a bit more time. So this is Simon Patterson, the former husband of Erin, who we've just been watching. And the post was the 29th of June, 2022. Some of you will know that I've had some serious medical problems since late May. I collapsed at home, then was in an induced coma for 16 days, through which I had 3 emergency operations, mainly on my small intestine, plus an additional planned operation. My family were asked to come and say goodbye to me twice, as I was not expected to live. I was in intensive care for 21 days, after which I was in the general ward for a week, and now I'm at a rehab place since last Saturday. Yeah. Let's continue. I'm pleased to say all the medical work has seemed to have fixed the serious gut problems I had. Do you remember that? When we talked about death cap mushroom poisoning, gastrointestinal issues, intestinal. So it seems to have fixed the serious gut problems I had, and I've been feeling great for many days. I feel no pain, and it all seems to have no impact on my personality, character, or anything else much. I have a big scar on my tummy, which is healing itself slowly, and I have ICU-acquired weakness, which is a common condition of people who lie in intensive care for a long time, as I did. I can walk and do all the normal daily functions myself. However, my left shoulder in particular is very weak. I've been working hard at physio to build muscle strength. Both arms still need work, so I can get back to basketball, hopefully in 2023. I'm expected to make a full recovery, so I'm back to the same capacity I had before I collapsed. Anyhow, that's a long-winded background to say I was absolutely blown away this morning to receive this amazing care package from the Poowong Basketball Association. It was a huge surprise, and it's full of fantastic goodies. Thank you so much to whomever organised it. It is incredible. It is also timely, as my wife Erin and my kids Sam and Hannah are coming in to visit this arvo, and I'm rapt to be able to share the goodies with them today. And then there's the hamper that he was sent, and there it is open with some of the contents. Got shortbreads, and it looks like some sort of candied peanutty things, and some veggie chips, and some chamomile tea, and some gluten-free Kez's golden snaps. They're delicious. I've actually had them. And the commenting's been turned off on the post, probably because he was getting bombarded with stuff, I guess, after what's happened. So he and Erin were still together in June last year, and the kids were coming in to visit. So, yeah, what do you guys think of this? Well, someone sent a hamper in. I wouldn't be letting her bring any food in. Did the ex-wife make that same meal for her ex-husband again? Well, this is the question. It was sent from a club, a sporting club. It wasn't Hannah that sent him that. I love how concerned you all are for him. I think this woman should give up cooking and order takeout. Oh, your serial killer book just arrived. Going to crack the case now. Awesome. But yeah, isn't that a bit of a doozy? Just to add to this story that's already fascinating and horrifying and so many twists and turns. It's ridiculous. Wouldn't trust her with a house plant. Lastly, I'm going to drop the link because it goes for just under 10 minutes. This is the link to the Australian newspaper podcast. Some of you are familiar with Teacher's Pet, the story of the terrifyingly sad murder of Lynette Dawson and her husband Chris Dawson being found guilty last year. That was through the Australian. They do brilliant podcasts. So that's the link to the Australian podcast that they're doing on the death cap mushrooms and the poisoning. But rather than us sitting and listening, I thought I'd drop the link for you guys and you can all listen to that and subscribe to the Australian online. It's a really great channel. And it's only got 16,000 subscribers, which amazes me, but they probably may not have been putting a lot of stuff up for, it might be a relatively young channel. I don't know, but I'm amazed it doesn't have more. But I thought you guys might find that interesting too to listen to. Yes, I think there's many a side-eye happening for sure. But it's one of my best friend's birthdays today, and we're going out to dinner tonight, so I wanted to cover this today. I'm working tomorrow, but I will definitely be keeping you guys updated, even if where did that? I just saw an article with a really good. Oh wait, there's a new detail from 2 hours ago. Hang on a sec. No, so police have confirmed that Erin is a suspect. So they've actually confirmed it. Let me just bring this up. This is a very mainstream media site. Yeah, it's my beautiful friend Andrew, who I speak of a lot. My BFF, who's my hairdresser as well. But we're friends outside of him being my hairdresser. Friends first, hairdresser later. So this is the article that's a couple of hours old. And like I said, it's a very mainstream media article. So take it with a grain of salt. News.com.au. But yeah, the police have actually confirmed that she's a suspect. It's interesting that they've put this out like it's I mean, she'd already been named a suspect, so have they just... Fresh details have emerged about the woman at the centre of the suspected mushroom poisoning death, with homicide detectives confirming she's a suspect in the case. This doesn't seem new to me. I'm going to see what else there is in here. And then look, Don and Gail Patterson and her sister Heather Wilkinson died from symptoms again. And then Ian is mentioned as being in critical condition at Melbourne's Austin Hospital. This was a press conference on Monday when Inspector Thomas said that their relationship was still amicable. On Saturday, August the 5th, they executed a search warrant of the residential address where the lunch was served, and they interviewed her that day, and she was later released. Oh, the police know what the meals were. That's the new information. Well, it's not much because we don't know. We've seized a number of what we call exhibits. A lot of the items that we have seized will be forensically tested. And toxicology reports are being organised. A lot of work to do before the police could land on firm conclusions. The police is still unsure where the mushrooms had been sourced from, and we're presuming at this point it's mushrooms. And that's Heather Wilkinson and Ian, the one that's still in hospital. Children partake in the meal. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. About midnight on the Saturday night, that's when they started to fall ill. So it wasn't quick. Like, they had lunch on the Friday and it was midnight Saturday that they started to fall ill. And they were all exhibiting food poisoning. So there's Don and Gail Patterson. What a horrible way to die too. Like, they spent, you know, a week in hospital with God knows what was going on. Oh, it's awful to think about. Police are working with the Victorian Department of Health and poison specialists at Austin Hospital. Police are still undecided whether they're investigating a crime or an accident. We're working for the coroner in these cases, where we become the coronial investigator. We're working to determine what has gone on to see if there's any nefarious activity that has occurred or if it was accidental. My husband and I worked with them, that's Gail and Don, for 20 years. It's really devastating news. Gail was in the office. Don was a very dedicated science teacher and loved his astronomy. They were very Christian and very lovely people. They would always say hello and acknowledge everyone. The couple loved to travel, and Don had recently visited China to further his religious studies. This is the mayor, Nathan Hersey. Ms. Patterson and her sister Heather were close. South Gippsland Shire Mayor Nathan Hersey confirmed they were involved in the local Baptist church. They were well loved in the tight-knit community. Much loved and very well respected. Mr. Wilkinson is still in hospital in a bad way, but Mr. Hersey wouldn't comment on the investigation. At the moment, we just have to let the investigation continue and provide whatever support we can as a community. The family has requested privacy while they grieve. What happens from here needs to remain in the hands of the authorities to investigate. What we're just hoping for a really good outcome for Ian. So what's with her saying Donna died? Oh, sorry, saying Don was still in the hospital. Was I even sharing that then? Your hairdresser's your best friend also. And yours too, Emily. Send murderous Mary over for a lunch at Erin's. Pulling for Ian. They will, yeah, the toxicology reports usually are released. Well, they come out as part of the investigation, and we usually find that out, yes. I wouldn't eat a mushroom at this point if I was part of the Donna party. I don't know who the Donnas are. I'm glad too, because it's got all the things we love, sadly, but it has, like, mystery. So sorry if I wasn't actually sharing that article, but yeah, China for religious studies. It is surprising. I did share it. Okay, cool. I'm not like other YouTubers that sit there and read every single word out. Like, I flick through for the info because you guys can read. I don't have to sit here going like through an entire article. We just want the good stuff, the new stuff. But that seems to be the only. There was a little bit more info. But there was a headline that when I tried to click on the link, why isn't it opened? Oh. Wait. What? Hang on. Now this is Perth Now, and this is also mainstream media, and check this salacious reporting out. Erin Patterson, ex-husband Simon, accuses deadly mushroom cook of trying to poison him. Have they just come up with that hideous headline based on that Facebook post? Because he definitely doesn't accuse her in that. In fact, they're still together at that point. She and the kids were coming in to see him in hospital after he'd come out of an induced coma for 16 days. The ex-husband of a woman who cooked a toxic mushroom lunch that left 3 dead has alleged she previously tried to poison him. The revelation comes as it can be revealed that Erin Patterson initially told police she bought the mushrooms from a local shop. Now, this I've already heard this stuff, and this Aussie Tad and I were talking about this, and this is all unverified stuff, and allegedly someone within the police has leaked this information. So, yeah, sounds pretty dodgy. This sounds like a sleuth on YouTube to me, creating a story, a rumor. Because, yeah, it says, as it can be revealed that Erin initially told police she bought the mushrooms from a local shop. Are they quoting their sources? I'm glad we're looking at this because this is the exact sort of shit that causes so many problems with cases. Oh, the Donners are cannibals. Okay. Oh, my God, Samantha, your ongoing storytelling in the chat is intense. Huge creepy smile, and I'm so glad you threw it away. Jesus, Samantha. Well, but Scout, just bear in mind, this is not a reputable media source. This is me showing why shitty reporting feeds the sleuths. There's definitely information out there that is there is alleged information out there that was allegedly leaked by someone close to the investigation. We've heard this before, haven't we, with Idaho 4? If this article doesn't quote their sources and so on, it needs to just go straight in the bin. But part of this alleged leak information was that initially she said she bought the mushrooms, and then when the police asked her again about the food, she started being a no-comment interview. So, but again, it's come from an unreliable source. I'm not attaching any weight to this at all. It's definitely not on my proved facts list. But in terms of showing an article that just shows how easily these stories get manipulated by people on YouTube and other social media platforms, it's pretty interesting. We don't know. We don't know, Emily. The dehydrator's got a big question mark over it, the dodgy dehydrator. Okay, back to this. So, yeah, Perth Now, no. We've been looking at, like, the Australian and the Australian Broadcasting Commission, the ABC. Way more inclined to put it. We looked at the Independent yesterday, like, way more inclined to put a bit of faith in their reporting. But this one, But it's perfect for what we do on this channel. It's showing, let's have a look. So, Simon Patterson, who almost died from a mystery gut illness in 2022, suspected his wife Erin had tried to poison him through an ingested toxin. A source close to the family said that Simon believed he'd ingested the poison through nightshade plants, a family of herbs, shrubs, and trees that include tomatoes, eggplants, potatoes, and peppers. A source close to the family. Yeah, right. Some friggin' nosy neighbour. Simon suspected he'd been poisoned by Erin, the source told the Herald Sun. Well, put them in the same category as this newspaper. There were times he had felt a bit off, and it often coincided when he spent time with her. Eating nightshade plants containing poisonous alkaloids can be fatal. The West Australia, here's the disclaimer, the West Australian and Perth Now are not suggesting that Erin tried to poison Simon, only that he has made the allegation. According to some person close to the family, he said, look how shitty this reporting is. Because so many people, like you can just see YouTubers latching onto this. I'm like, well, Simon said that she tried to poison him. That's the allegation he made. No, it's some bloody comment from some family, a source close to the family, who's saying all of this shit, not Simon. And then further, it was revealed this week that Simon had been invited by Erin to the fateful mushroom lunch at her home on July 29th, but pulled out at the last minute. Oh, what's happening in this footage? Is she like, please get off my porch? And yes, we've seen the Facebook page about Simon spending 21 days in intensive care for the mystery stomach illness and that he'd almost died. And people were asked to come and say goodbye to him twice. And then they've pulled a photo of him off his Facebook page. Oh, my God, he's riding a camel. Probably in Mongolia. Did they go to Mongolia? I've been to Mongolia. That's what I look like, riding a camel in Mongolia. With that. Although, no, the Gobi Desert's a rock desert, but interesting. It is understood Simon, who's aged in his 40s, spoke to family and friends about his suspicions of being poisoned following his recovery. Simon's medical records are expected to be examined by detectives. The source said Simon and Erin separated years ago, but he tried to keep the relationship stable for their children's sake. I think he was really trying to facilitate a healthy co-parenting arrangement, the source said. Basically, all of his choices and everything he was doing was to keep things stable for the kids. And then again, Gail, Don and Heather died. Ian is gravely ill and needs a liver transplant. Not known if Erin also ate the meal. The kids ate a different meal. There's Heather and Ian. It was reported by 7 News, and they're in the same category again, mainstream media, that Erin initially told police she picked up the mushrooms from a local shop. Police are still doing tests on the dehydrator that they found at the local tip. And another disclaimer, the West Australian and Perth Now do not suggest that Erin was responsible for the 3 deaths. But even if it was an accident, she's responsible. I mean, she didn't have the intention to kill, but look how they keep putting disclaimers in. They're covering their asses. And that's Gail Patterson. And that's Don. And that's the end of that. But that's the sort of article that gets in the hands of sleuths on YouTube and they run with it. Simon said he was allegedly poisoned by her on many occasions. He actually pulled out of the lunch on the 29th because he was sure she'd try to poison him again. That's where you can just see it. Those articles are so dangerous. And the fact that they keep putting disclaimers in there, oh, we're not saying anything that we're reporting means that she did it, even though we've written an article that pretty much says she did it. Okay, I'm just going to check a few more comments and then I'm going to get on with my Thursday. Maybe they'll finally quit talking about Coburger because they'll all be talking about it. Possibly, yeah. But come here for the facts, guys. because Australian media sources are already providing salacious, gossipy, rumour mill articles that the sleuths will latch onto. At least the Washington Post did a very decent coverage of it. There was nothing in there that hasn't been reported in the more reputable Australian media outlets. So thank God they didn't run with this Perth Now story or the bullshit I watched yesterday on Channel 7. I agree. The Long Island serial killer should knock Koberger off. Exactly. His statement did say a lot, yeah, and I mean that the Facebook post is pretty interesting, but the source close to the family, My friend rode one in Egypt, a camel, near the pyramids, and ate in a tent catered affair. Delightful. No, there's no mention of that. I mean, the police have said that they believe the separation was amicable. So I'm going with what the police said, but who knows? Yes, rest in peace to all of the victims. Oh, you trust me explicitly. Thank you. So that's kind of where we'll wrap it up, I think. It's certainly an interesting and terrifyingly sad story and saga, but now it's been covered in, media outlets around the world as well. I'm just doing one last little refresh. And the tests are being done on the dehydrator even as we speak. Oh, my God, this is so tacky. I'm going to show you my Google page. Like, I know that we can joke and muck around a bit to try and make things a bit lighthearted, and we do it tastefully and respectfully. But I just punched into Google mushroom deaths just to get, a little update on any news stories and so on, which I always do before I cover any case before I go live. And I've been checking it as we've been live as well. And then we've got different articles from 5 hours ago and 18 hours ago. We've covered all of this stuff. Don't feel like you've missed anything out. And then, with Google, you can click on that and get more stories. And I'm just scrolling down, just checking there's nothing I've missed. And we get down to the bottom of the page, mushroom recipes. Mushroom risotto. Oh, my God, the trumpet of death risotto. And a portobello mushroom margarita. Trumpet of death risotto. Oh, my God. That's grim. That is grim. Wow. Wow. The trumpet of death risotto. I'm tempted. This is what I keep thinking with my cooking, if I can be bothered setting up, because I really need to have a permanent camera in there because it's such a pain to have to set it all up and pull it all down, and it's just a pain in the bum. But I've often thought about doing crime and cooking, and I mean, how demented would I be if I was cooking a mushroom risotto talking about this case? Is it dark and bleak enough for is it too dark and bleak? What do you guys think? I could just cover cases of like death by food of some description and then just cook whatever. That's a bit freak. It's a bit wrong, isn't it? What do you guys think? Today it's a bit hard too because this one's such a fresh story. Like, I don't want to, and I get the giggles at the wrong time, like uncontrollable giggles. I could see myself really offending a lot of people. It is a fine line. It's a fine line. But yeah, the trumpet of death risotto. How ironic. But maybe that's what I've got to do. I've got be a bit more edgy. Because, I've often thought about a crime and cooking show. And the only reason I haven't done it yet is because Bailey Sarian, who covers true crime, puts on makeup while she's talking about the most brutal murders. And so many people adore her, and she's an incredible makeup artist. Like the stuff she does, the makeup that she puts on, she's incredible. But I could never get into her because I just couldn't handle that. She's like, and then he put the noose around her neck and pulled it tight till she stopped breathing. It just doesn't work for me. And I wondered if the cooking murder thing's also... It's a tad too... We all like dark, yes. Well, you might lose some weight, Samantha, if you're not ordering takeaway. Maybe cold or old cases, but good idea. The cooking and crime idea. I mean, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to take it to that sort of edge. And I wouldn't be making fun, obviously, of the victims, especially if we were doing this particular one. But it's more that I don't know my ability to not burst out laughing while I'm doing it. That's the issue that I've got. So, yeah, I might try a few older... I've done episodes on the Smooth Criminal podcast about murder by different types of food. So I might do a couple of those to test it. But I also don't mind being that kind of dark YouTube persona. And there's an Australian case that's the worst one of all, which involved cooking a victim in a pot and serving it up to the family. That'd be a great one to launch the season with, the series. I don't know. You guys have to let me know. But yeah, do I kick off crime and cooking with Catherine Knight? I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool and a bit edgy. And I'd make sure that I just wore like really, black. I've got a black MasterChef oven, apron. Just wear all black. Let's cook. Go for it. All right. Oh, I know the Catherine Knight. I have to do that story. It's just it's the worst. I think we've got awful serial killer cases in Australia, but I reckon Catherine Knight is the worst murder story from Australia, and also definitely the worst female murderer. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. In fact, a lot of people that cover it leave a lot of the detail out because of how bad it is. All right, go for it. Okay, so yeah, if you guys are inspired, I'll make the effort. I haven't got a big kitchen I haven't got a big house, but I just need to find some sort of bracket so I have a camera just permanently sitting in there and I can just plug it in and away we go. I'm regretting now that my island bench doesn't have the stovetop and everything on it, because it'd be so much easier just to film it with the kitchen in the background. But let me work on it. I mean, I could always, I guess, be chopping everything up and putting it into a pot. You don't need to see the pot, do you, really? All right. Let me think this through. I mean, well, I have thought it through before. I don't know what's holding me back. And I'm like, I'm 56. Fuck it. Let's just do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway, right? But yeah, I'll file away the trumpet of death risotto for down the track with this one, maybe. It is a bit too soon. I'll be respectful. You guys know that. Oh, I know how to do the sync. I'm just lazy. Well, I'm not lazy. I've got so much on. But no, I've already got these channels are already linked to Facebook, and I know how to link them to the others. I'm going to be spending a bit of time even this weekend, just like I'm getting a lot of activity now on the Smooth Criminal Facebook page. So I'm going to start looking at cases that people are suggesting and getting things up and running and making things all get published. But even like when I set up a premiere video on this channel, you get the opportunity to share it out on your social media, and I'm just really bad at it. I'm logged into the wrong Twitter account, so I don't bother doing it. You know what I mean? Like I need to just be very concise. And I mean, the crime and cooking, we can go live on this channel, and also have it archived on Cheap and Cheery, but I might change the name of that channel. Thank you. I'm not lazy. I'm busy. And then, yeah, it's just hard, you know, and then Tasmania Calling, I love the channel, but it hasn't grown in subscribers for a year. It's actually just gone backwards and is now sort of stuck on a permanent 1,400 subscribers. But I still like having that there for any kind of Tassie stuff that I do when I'm out and about. It's a good little vlog channel, but that's really all I want to use that for now. It's not even really enjoyable going live because it's just not in the algorithm at all. But, you know, for people that are subscribed, if I'm on a beach walk or something, definitely I'll do some lives in that regard. But that's going to be just more of a vlog. And I've got really great ideas for that channel too. It's the time. But Smooth, this channel and the cooking one can be connected. And I've been thinking about changing the name. Francesca and I have had a few conversations, and I came up with a name that I really liked. But now I'm wondering if it's just going to be all about cooking and crime. I don't know. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Can one create a Facebook account under your screen name? Yeah. I've got a Smooth Criminal profile and page, and you can live stream on definitely on the profile page, but whether you can on and that's the thing, I've just got so many social media pages and you've got to be logged out of them all. But once it's all set up and I leave my laptop with everything open purely for all of this sort of stuff, but then it's a pain because I don't like, a lot of my friends message me on Messenger and I can't stand being on my phone all day going, I'm just like, it's so much easier to chat with people on Messenger if I've got my laptop. But anyway, look, we'll work it all out. But yeah, I was thinking of changing this channel name because of the social media, the way social media is impacting trials. I came up after a long chat with a lot of chats with Francesca. I liked the name Cyber Law Tour, and that's what I was going to go with. But now I've decided that's just going to be a title. So like when I'm calling out sleuths, we've got Sleuth Busters. When I'm talking about the advent of social media law, that's when in the title there can be Cyber Law Tour. But the channel name itself, like for me, I'm just uncomfortable with having sleuths in the title because it doesn't give the impression that I'm anti-sleuths. It gives the impression potentially that I'm into them. And that's not the impression I want to give because we all know it's the exact opposite. So I don't know whether this channel gets completely rebranded as Crime and Cooking and the Cheap and Cheery continues to be like the little archive of all of the recipes. I don't know. Dine and Crime. But this is the problem, Emily, and this is the thing, like coming up with an all-encompassing name. You can't put every single word that describes what you do into your title because it ends up being this, and I just can't. There's so many different angles we look at. I need like an umbrella name. So even like Crime, Dine and Crime, that could be, again, the subject heading for that particular live. What I'm trying to find is that overarching name that encompasses everything. And so, yeah, something like Crime and Cooking I wouldn't do either because it's not always going to be what I'm doing on here. So what's the overarching name? And I really liked Better Call Tor until the Glera one day I heard him saying, well, there's so many dickheads that have got Better Call Saul variations on YouTube. And I was like, oh, fuck, okay. I get so easily affected by stuff and I just changed the name, but I really liked Better Call Saul. But what I need is a short, catchy little name that covers everything. And then all of these different things that I do, we can give it a word or a catchy thing at the start of the title for that particular live or video. And you're all talking Dine and Crime, but I've just made a point that it's not, for a whole channel, it's not, it doesn't cover everything. Because the social media stuff is really important to me too. Camera on you chopping ingredients off camera. Definitely edgy. Well, C-beams glitter. Sorry, I thought that was a cement cheese comment. Camera on you chopping ingredients. No, I chop on camera. Nice to have you here, C-beams glitter. I want them to see me with my knife skills. But yeah, so I don't know. It has to be broader than Dine and Crime. Dine and Crime could definitely be the start of the subject for each time I'm cooking and talking about a case. But as you guys know, I also do scam baiting. I also I'm talking about the advent of social media law. I talk about that Stop the Madness series with how social media is impacting civil and criminal trials. I cover missing people. I cover current cases like this one. I cover old cases. It's got to be a big umbrella name. Yeah, the problem with that, Scout, is you've got to have like an immaculate house. And in winter, I have like right now, I've got a drying rack right there with all my clothes drying. And a GoPro is, I have to just turn my head side and you get the whole house as well, which I actually like having a bit of my home kept private. I've thought about it before, but that's why I decided not to do the GoPro. And to have an absolutely immaculate house, even while I'm cooking, putting dishes onto the bench top, making sure they look, no. My OCD and a GoPro, bad combo. Well, I haven't yet. That's the problem. I mean, Jays for Justice weirdly suggested 6 Feet Down Under, which I really liked. And then I Googled it, and it's the name of and I imagine this is where she thought of it from, because it's the name of a Metallica album. And I don't like Chris Watts at all, and I don't want to have a Metallica album channel name. But it was also a TV series in Australia, but 6 Feet Down Under was pretty cool. But it's something like that I'm trying to think up. So, yeah, pop your thinking caps on, guys, but it's got to be broader than just one of the things that I do on my channel. You hear me, groovers? Well, even morbid meals would be great. Well, there's the whole morbid thing, because then I'll be accused of, God knows what. I thoroughly recommend everyone who's sort of into morbid or curious about him or heard Life Perplex hideous rant yesterday that you watch the start of his live yesterday so he can go through the true story, because a few of us in this community have followed morbid for a long time and did our research and heard a lot of stuff and went, whoa, and then listened to him and know the story. But yeah, I thoroughly recommend anyone that is curious, or if they listen to Laura, do check out the start of his live yesterday, where he once again explains it. In fact, he explains it in way more detail than he ever has before, and it's actually sad listening to it that he even has to continue to talk about it. But please don't make your decisions till you listen to that. But yeah, if I put morbid meals, I could get into trouble as well. Not by, for copying his name or whatever, but I wouldn't do that. It's too close. Too broad. Tore Down Under. Digging things up down under. Yeah, I really like James. We do. And I'm sad that, like, I want people to discover him and appreciate his talents, and he has many. But I also, it's so disheartening at the moment that the audience that he's building is an area of the Krama community that I don't like. And there's something really great about going into lives there used to be, and just everyone in there kind of chatted, a bit like our community when it was smaller. He's going to become a little bit commercial. I mean, he won't, because it won't suit his plans on YouTube anyway. But it's still a bit of a bummer. He is funny as fuck indeed. All right, my lovelies, I really do need to go. It's lunchtime. No wonder I'm ravenous. I've got to have some food, do a lot of chores, get ready for this dinner party, and I've got to go and buy the boys' birthday presents. Their birthdays are very close together, but it's one of their birthdays today. So I'll be back on the weekend, I reckon, guys. I'm working tomorrow from home, though, so I may do a live tomorrow night. See how we go. And I'll keep you updated. And if you find anything about the mushroom mystery or murder, feel free to send me an email to smoothcriminalchannel@gmail.com. I'm actually quite good at checking comments on YouTube and also my email. And thanks for hanging out. This went way longer than planned, and I'm getting, that hungry headache that's kicking in right about now. So until next time, don't get hit by, don't get struck by a smooth criminal. Love, love. See you all very soon.
Leongatha. So she ran to the bedroom, she was put down.